Hi guys, welcome to another lecture in the series of lectures on the namesake. Um, going to start reading ahead today. Um, Seen much of this world? Ghosh asked, Shok, untying his shoes and settling himself cross-legged on the berth. He pulled a packet of Donald cigarettes from his jacket pocket, offering them around the compartment before lighting one for himself. Once to Delhi, Ashok replied, and lately once a year to Jamshedpur. Ghosh extended his arm out the window, flicking the glowing tip of his cigarette into the night. Not this world, he said, glancing disappointedly about the interior of the train. He tilted his head toward the window. England, America, he said, as if the nameless villages they passed had been replaced by those countries. Have you considered going there? My professors mention it from time to time, but I have a family, Ashok said. Ghosh frowned. Already married? No, a mother and a father and 6 siblings. I am the eldest. And in a few years you will be married and living in your parents' house, Ghosh speculated. I suppose. Ghosh shook his head. You're still young, free, he said, spreading his hands apart for emphasis. Do yourself a favor before it's too late, without thinking too much about it first. Pack a pillow and a blanket and see as much of this world as you can. You will not regret it. One day it will be too late. My grandfather always says that's what books are for, Ashok said, using the opportunity to open the volume in his hands. To travel without moving an inch. To each his own, Ghosh said. He tipped his head politely to one side, letting the last of the cigarette drop from his fingertips. He reached into a bag by his feet and took out his diary, turning to the 20th of October. The page was blank on it. With a fountain pen whose cap he ceremoniously unscrewed, he wrote his name and address. He ripped out the page and handed it to Ashok. If you ever change your mind and need contacts, let me know. I live in Tollygunj, just behind the tram depot. Thank you, Ashok said, folding up the information and putting it at the back of his book. How about a game of cards? Ashok Ghosh suggested. He pulled out a well-known deck from his suit pocket with Big Ben's image on the back, but Ashok politely declined, for he knew no card games, and beside which he preferred to read. One by one, the passengers brushed their teeth in the vestibule, changed into their pajamas, fastened the curtain around their compartments, and went to sleep. Ghosh offered to take the upper berth, climbing barefoot up the ladder, his suit carefully folded away so that Ashok had the window to himself. The Bihari couple shared some sweets from a box and drank water from the same cup without either of them putting their lips to the rim, then settled into their berths as well, switching off the lights and turning their heads to the wall. Only Ashok continued to read, still seated, still dressed. A single small bulb glowed dimly over his head. From time to time, he looked through the open window at the inky Bengal night, at the vague shapes of palm trees and simplest of forms. Carefully, he turned the soft yellow pages of his book, a few delicately tunneled by worms. The steam engine puffed reassuringly, powerfully. Deep in his chest, he felt the rough jostle of the wheels. Sparks from the smokestack passed by his window. A fine layer of sticky soot dotted one side of his face, his eyelid, his arm, his neck. His grandfather would insist that he scrub himself with a cake of Margot soap as soon as he arrived, immersed in the sartorial plight of a keki, lost in the wide, snow-white, windy avenues of St. Petersburg, unaware that one day he was to dwell in a snowy place himself. Ashok was still reading at 2:30 in the morning. one of the few passengers on the train who was awake when the locomotive engine and seven bogies derailed from the broad gauge line. The sound was like a bomb exploding. The first four bogies capsized into a depression alongside the track. The fifth and sixth, containing the first class and air conditioned passengers, telescoped into each other, killing the passengers in their sleep. The seventh, where Ashok was sitting, capsized as well, flung by the speed of the crash farther into the field. The accident occurred 209 kilometers away from Calcutta, between the Ghatshila and Dhalambar stations. The trains the train guard's portable phone would not work. It was only after the guard ran nearly 5 kilometers from the site of the accident to Ghatshila that he was able to transmit the first message for help. Over an hour passed before the rescuers arrived, bearing lanterns and shovels and axes to pry bodies from the cars. Uh, we're going to continue reading ahead in the next lecture. I think this was already quite a heavy read. With what we read in this lecture, I want you to first focus on the conversation between Ashok and Ghosh, right? That, like, just read through it once on your own. I know that I am expecting that everybody has read the novel already, but just read through it one more time, the conversation between Ghosh and Ashok. See how Lahiri creates imagery along with dialogues, and then even in terms of her dialogues, just this dialogue: you're still young, free. Do yourself a favor before it's too late. Without thinking too much about it, first pack a pillow and a blanket and see as much of the world as you can. You will not regret it. One day it will be too late. And how Ashok's responding to it. My grandfather always says that's what books are for, to travel without moving an inch. And then Ashok does go on to travel the world. In fact, he moves also. But when you read this, or actually I'll come back to it later. And then also, when we talk about Lahiri's style of writing, in a movie or when recording or shooting something, you can always slow something down, right? If you're shooting an accident scene, you can slow it down. But when you are writing an accident scene, to be able to translate that scene on paper in a way that it seems like it is happening in slow motion is not technically always possible. And when you read this scene, the scene of the accident, you're reading it and you can imagine it happening in slow motion. And in, of course, very disturbing details, of course, of almost every part of the train. But yeah, mainly like the whole scene that's happening, the crashing, the cramming, everything. You're reading it and you can visualize it in slow motion. That's not something that everyone's gifted with. That's not a talent that everyone's gifted with. Jhampalari has that talent. Very few mad genius writers or mad genius creatives have possessed that talent, right? Because a lot of us can think of ideas, but to be able to translate that idea like this, especially on paper and words, is very, very, very rare. Like, for example, these lines: the first four bogies capsized into a depression alongside the track. The fifth and sixth, containing the first class and air-conditioned passengers, telescoped into each other, killing the passengers in their sleep. The seventh, where Ashok was sitting, capsized as well, flung by the speed of the crash farther into the field. The accident occurred 209 kilometers from Calcutta, between the Ghatshila and Dhalamburg stations. The train guard's portable phone would not work. It was only after the guard ran nearly 5 kilometers from the site of the accident to Ghatshila that he was able to transmit the first message for help. When you're reading it, you can feel like everything's happening in slow motion. Generally, when you're reading a scene, you can visualize it, and being able to add in a lot of descriptive words to help you visualize something is technically not that difficult. But being able to help you visualize something in slow motion with words is something that people who have great command over their language, punctuations, all of that stuff can only do. I want you guys to think of probably other writers who can do something like that. Think of other writers who can write descriptions like that and their own unique styles of writing. Go through the notes, guys, for this lecture, very important. And other than that, don't forget to do the task. If you guys like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, guys, and press the bell icon to stay updated for whenever a new lecture drops in. I think that's about it for this lecture. See you guys soon.